All right, everybody, how's it going? A happy Friday to all of you. I'm not here for April Fools. Like, you can do that on your own time. Like, if you wanted to get the April Fools stuff going in your day, you did it this morning. You saw your memes. You saw the tweets that made you laugh. You follow the people that want to do that kind of stuff, so it ain't happening here. Okay? Okay.
All business.
Yeah, like, enough. We've got plenty. We got a lot. Wow. The enough I just used there, Lamarca, sounded very much like Steve Buchanan.
Yeah, that was a Bukes rant right there.
That was a Bukes. Enough. Okay. That being said, welcome to the show. Brendan Glasheen and Matt Lamarca will be with you for the next 40 minutes or so talking NBA. We have a big slate tonight, 10 games, lots of injury news as usual to monitor in the association. We'll look at some futures as well, just kind of discuss the NBA in general as the season winds down. About 10 days to go in the regular season. There's a big game tonight as it pertains to the play-in tournament. Lakers taking on the Pelicans. Anthony Davis not active for that game tonight against his old team. So that will be something to monitor.
I think he is expected to play was the last thing I heard.
Oh, my apologies. So if Anthony Davis is in against his old team, I take it back.
Yeah, LeBron and AD both technically questionable. Davis, there is a report that he's expected to play. LeBron is hopeful to play, whatever that means. So it sounds like we're going to have to go down to the wire with whether either of those guys is going to be in the lineup.
Okay, so, pardon me. So here we go. SB Nation reporting earlier this afternoon. Anthony Davis, dealing with the foot, is planning to play, is officially questionable. So that mirrors what Lamarca just mentioned. So we'll keep an eye on that game. That one worth discussing. And also Minnesota, Denver, two teams that are in the playoff picture in the West, above the play-in line. That's the other intriguing game. Other than that, in the Pistons, they do deserve some love because of their run as of late against the spread. The Pistons have been a wagon against the number as of late, the last 20, 21 games as a dog, which on most nights they are an underdog. So they've been fun to watch. So we'll use those games as jumping off points, but Lamarca, it is a fun time of year when you consider baseball starting up. We can maybe talk a little baseball too. Jacob deGrom getting sidelined. It was just a week ago we were talking about the Mets. What are the Mets going to look like this year as World Series favorites? And you didn't take the cheese, and I'm glad you didn't because those odds may have just got a little bit longer as a result of the deGrom news today. But talking basketball first, and we'll take your questions on YouTube, also on Twitch. What stands out to you on this slate or just in hoops in general?
Yeah, it's a typical late season NBA slate. You've got, the teams that are out of it are really mailing it in. Then you've got other teams that are in it who are resting a bunch of players. The Grizzlies have listed 4 players as doubtful: Jaren Jackson Jr., Steven Adams, Desmond Bane, Tyus Jones. Ja, of course, remains out of the lineup. So they're pretty well secured in the 2 spot currently in the West. So they've kind of earned the right where they can have a little bit of, games down the stretch where they look to get their guys some rest. The Bucks are coming off 2 straight, big games, overtime win over the Nets in their last contest on the second leg of a back-to-back. Not ultimately all that surprising. They're going to rest Giannis, Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, and Brook Lopez. They're a half game out of first in the East, so I thought that maybe there was a chance we would see their starters. But the good news is they're playing a Clippers team that is also choosing to rest a bunch of players. The Clippers are pretty solidly locked into the 8 seed in the West. They're going to be without Paul George, without Reggie Jackson, without Marcus Morris, without Ivica Zubac. Nick Batum. Ivica Zubac is in for the time being, at least. So, yeah, just tons and tons and tons of injury news. If you are playing DFS, it's a clear stars and scrubs type of slate. There's tons of value plays available to go along with guys like Nikola Jokic, Luka Doncic, DeJounte Murray, LeBron James. So, I think for sure it's going to be a stars and scrubs build type of night.
Very good. And again, Matt Lamarca's got an article up today over on the DraftKings playbook. If you need the URL, which I feel like I haven't said that in a long time. Hey, here's the URL you need to find. It's dknation.draftkings.com. NBA betting, fantasy advice, DraftKings basketball, DFS picks, predictions, odds for April 1st. So you buried the lead, or you didn't bury the lead, I should say. You mentioned it's a stars and scrubs kind of night on the daily fantasy end of things. No one is on the first leg of a back-to-back tonight, but 4 teams on the second leg. You have the Pistons, Clippers. Clippers and Bucks, as you mentioned, are going to rest guys. So that game kind of becomes tricky to figure out. The Lakers, we think, are going to have LeBron and AD. So off of your first point, which stars are you targeting?
Yeah, I think for sure you want to start with Jokic. He's the most expensive player at 12,500, but he has been just by far the best player in fantasy this season. He's racked up 3 straight games where he has scored at least 70 DraftKings points. And now he gets a game against the Minnesota Timberwolves, who have played at the fastest pace in the league, not just this season, but in particularly of late. So it's a huge pace up spot for Jokic. I think paying 12.5 for him is fine with the ceiling that he offers. After that, I'm probably going to Luka next as the next safest option. He has also been fantastic recently, back-to-back games with at least 73. Murray has a great matchup versus the Blazers, but you have to worry about the blowout narrative there. The Spurs are actually 15-point favorites in that spot, so I'm a little bit more wary of him. And then LeBron is decidedly in play for me if he's active. The Lakers are not really in the position where they can ease LeBron back into action. Like playing him 30 minutes tonight, if he's active, is not on the table. They're going to need him to play, the 36, 38, possibly even 40 minutes that he was playing before he got hurt. And he was routinely paying off his salary during that stretch. And it was typically a more expensive salary, right? He's somebody who was priced as high as $12K. So getting him for sub $11K, I think is pretty fair.
Yeah, and there's a sense of urgency tonight too. Just the narrative, the Lakers need the game. Like they can no longer just say that we're in the play-in tournament. No, that's in question. The Spurs did lose last night, or the other night. Was that last night? Wednesday night. They lost
Spurs
Wednesday
won there.
night.
Both of the teams just keep losing, honestly. And the Spurs really have no interest in being in the playoffs.
Well, the Spurs have played well. The Spurs have been playing well. They're on a little win streak.
Yes, I'm just saying, like, it's not a priority for them, right? They traded away Derek White, who was like their second best player. So it's more just the only reason they're in this thing is because the rest of the bottom of the West has just been so bad.
Right.
So now that they're here, I think they're going to go for it. But really, this is a case of the Lakers coming back to the pack more than anything else.
Sure. Yep. And well, I'll say this just because I know Derek White is in Boston. The guy they gave up in that deal, Josh Richardson, he's actually ended up being a pretty good addition for that team. He's shooting 40+% from 3. It's been pretty good. I think San Antonio has actually kind of won that trade. They got a first round pick. They got Richardson, who's been better than Derek White. Derek White's been good. I think Derek White will prove his worth, as many players do when you make a move like that at the deadline. We'll find out in the playoffs what he's made of. That's when you really know, okay, the move was worth it, because there is a fitting in process, especially when you're on the contender and not the team selling. A little bit of a different mindset and also just more expectations, right, with the contender. So we'll keep an eye on injuries. If we get any news here in this next half hour, we will certainly let you know. So I'm surprised by this. So your favorite pick against the spread tonight over on the DK Sportsbook, 10 games to choose from. Injuries always a factor. Ja Morant's been out, but if you missed it, Ja Morant being out, the Grizzlies have been great. They're 19-2 without Ja Morant this year. Okay, they've been great. They've been excellent. So don't think you see no Ja. Oh, well, Memphis must have dropped off. No, they still have a very high pace. They have a very solid defensive rating. They still want to move the ball and play on the break. You actually like Phoenix, though, a team that also likes to push the pace. You like Phoenix to cover a 7.5-point spread. That's 3 possessions against the Grizzlies on the road. LaMarca, this is a Phoenix team that has everything locked up. They get a win the other night against Golden State. You got to talk to me about this. I'm curious as to what your mindset is. You think the Suns are going to cover a 7.5-point spread against Memphis?
Yeah, it'd be one thing if the Grizzlies were just without Ja here, right? I mean, believe it or not, for as good as Ja is, he really is one of the most exciting young players in the league. The Grizzlies have been they've increased their net rating by 5.3 points per 100 possessions with Ja off the floor.
Wow.
So I don't think that the Grizzlies supporting cast has gotten nearly enough credit this season. They've been really good. But now we're taking out Jaren Jackson, Steven Adams, Desmond Bane, and Tyus Jones. That's 4 additional players that we're removing from the rotation against the team that really is, in my opinion, being underrated. And it's weird to say that about the team that, has the best title odds, but I don't think the general public really appreciates how good Phoenix is, right? Phoenix has a chance to win 65 plus games this year. That's not something that you see every season. They lead the league in net rating. Of course, they have been at their best when they've had Chris Paul in the lineup alongside Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton. They're currently in the midst of another 9-game win streak. I mean, this team has just been rattling off win after win after win all year. They're 31-6 away from home, best mark in the league. So I think that, again, against the Grizzlies sort of C squad here, I would expect the Suns to be bigger favorites.
Wow. If I had to make one suggestion to people that like the Grizzlies, like me, I play the Grizzlies first half. That's how I approached the Grizzlies the other day against San Antonio. Grizzlies have the most wins against the first half spread in basketball this year. 51 wins against the spread in the first half. I do understand your point. I just think it's such a big number, and seeing Memphis is at home, they've been one of the better covering teams across the board, road, home, wherever they may be. Also, from a narrative standpoint, this is to help your argument. Phoenix the other night with their win against the Warriors, they tied the franchise record for wins in a season. They would break that record tonight with a victory, and they've got everyone available. Chris Paul's back, and Mikal Bridges. If you're a Sixers fan out there, doesn't this guy just keep breaking your heart? Like how good he's been, Mikal Bridges. I mean, they really do. Just to spend a hot minute here on the Phoenix Suns, they really do play a really fun brand of basketball. They really do.
Yeah, they're and for my money, they are the clear best team in the league.
Yeah.
If we want to talk some futures here, you can still get them at nearly 3-1 to win the title. I think that that's an appealing number. I mean, especially when you compare it to the Nets. The Nets might have to win 2 games just to get into the playoffs.
Yeah.
And they are plus 475. The Suns, who haven't just won games this year, they have been a demolition team, a wrecking ball. You can get them at plus 275. So, last week we talked about my favorite futures odds being the Suns, the Bucks, and the Celtics, which unfortunately the Celtics lose a lot of luster with Robert Williams now sidelined. But, the Bucks and Suns, both of those numbers have dropped a bit.
Yeah.
I still am expecting a finals rematch. I know you kind of voiced the same thing when we were talking. I think Suns Bucks part 2 in 2022.
Yeah. Also, some news today on the Golden State Warriors. Steph Curry, dealing with the foot injury, will be reevaluated in a week, and he is expected to return for the beginning of the playoffs. So there could be some concerns there because Curry, Thompson, Draymond Green, I thought I heard this on the broadcast last night, or I keep thinking last night was Wednesday night when they played each other. The week just, you know how it goes. When you're busy, man, just the week just flies. Every day they all mesh together. Just like 2020 and 2021, just all in one big blur. The game on Wednesday that went down to the wire, I thought I heard on the broadcast that they've only played 11 minutes together, which last I checked, when we had conversations about the Nets, when they had Harden, Durant, and Irving only playing in like 13 games together, that is ultimately why folks were out on the Nets. Now, look, the Nets last year, they were a Kevin Durant half inch of his foot away from the line moving on, but This year is a different year. They, like LaMarcus said, they've got to win 2 games in the play-in just to even get in the field.
Potentially, they might still finish with the 7 or more than likely the 8 seed, but they're there's a 3-way tie at the bottom right now.
Right, they could in theory they might only have to win 1 game to get in. That's true.
Exactly. Yes.
Right, because if they're in the 9 or 10 spot, they'd have to win 2.
Correct.
But yeah, I mean, like I'm so over looking at the Nets. I'm over looking at the Nets here at the top of these odds. The Bucks. You know why the Bucks jump out to me this week compared to last week? Because the number at plus 600, so 6-1 to win the NBA title, starting to correlate with Giannis to win MVP. Which I don't know if you want to go down this rabbit hole. I think Jokic is going to get it, but I think there's actually more value in Giannis to win MVP than Joel Embiid at this stage. I mean, you lose. Look, the Pistons, as we said, we give the Pistons their love against the spread. Got it. Okay. But you lose to the Pistons, Joel Embiid, I don't care if you drop 36, 66, it don't matter. You got to start, and they lost the other night to the Bucks. The Bucks win another game last night on national TV. That does matter. The voters, everyone's watching. All media members are watching those games. They beat the Sixers. Then they beat the Nets. Giannis hitting step back threes, draining 2 free throws at the end. These were all the things this guy was getting criticized of last summer. He can't make the outside shot. Now, granted, that 3 he made last night was his only 3 of the night. And he makes his free throws in the most clutch spot. You're down 1, final seconds, overtime, and you beat Durant and Kyrie. This guy, I mean, do you see value for Giannis MVP at this stage? And of course, I know you see value in NBA championship odds at plus 600.
Yeah. So first of all, apologies. I can't pull up the MVP odds on the DK Sportsbook because I'm a New Yorker. And unfortunately, that is a market that we cannannot bet for some.
I'll tell you right now. Okay. I'll read them off to the people. Jokic, as I have it up right here in Massachusetts. Jokic is at minus 185.
Okay.
Joel Embiid, this is all DraftKings. Joel Embiid plus 170, and there's Giannis at plus 550 to win MVP. That was plus 1,000 before last night's game. So they've been cut in half almost.
Yeah, I agree. So this is basically like right out of my most recent Betting Dime article that I wrote, which if you are interested in checking it out, it is on my Twitter account right now. But the ESPN did a survey earlier this week, sort of a straw poll.
Tim, what's his name? Tim Bontemps, I think is his name, the reporter.
Yeah, I don't remember, but it was they conducted a poll of 100 media members. Jokic was the winner at 62 first place votes, 860 total points. Embiid was in second and Giannis was in third. But what really caught my eyes were that the gap between Giannis and Embiid was much narrower than I thought it would have been. And that was, again, before Giannis beat Joel Embiid in a head-to-head matchup, and now before he beat the Brooklyn Nets. So I think that, again, Giannis is closing the gap. I don't know if he can necessarily get there, but he was you could literally get Giannis at plus 1,600 at just a few days ago. So now he's plus 500. I don't know if I necessarily love that number, but this is why I mentioned the Bucks being such a good finals bet, was because they haven't really prioritized regular season games, right? We talked about how Giannis plays 32 minutes a night most of these games. Well, he's played much more than that in these last 2, and we have seen the ceiling that Giannis gives you when you play him 37, 38 minutes.
Yeah, they've pulled this off. They've masked it in such a way where he's not taking nights off. It's not load management. He's out there every night, but I mean, they're going out there and they're just hammering teams where he can, like you said, he only has to play 29 to 33 minutes a night where, okay, job's finished. We'll call it a night. So he's almost handled it perfectly to maintain success in what is a cluttered Eastern Conference, as we've discussed all season. But at the same time, be very much in the discussion to an MVP. And you know what? He should be discussed. And that's a whole nother discussion about who should win it versus who will win it. You could make the case LeBron should have won 7 of those MVPs in the years he was in Cleveland.
Probably more.
Probably more, and maybe 9 or 10, based on the number of years that Cleveland came out of the Eastern Conference when LeBron went back to the Cavs. I mean, we're in the same boat here with Giannis. I think folks are like, oh, we're going to give him a 3rd MVP? Yes, it's okay. You can do that. Now, then again, I think Jokic, when your next best player with Murray out this season, I don't think it's I think Jokic winning the award would be totally okay. Take the triple doubles out of it. He's doing it with Aaron Gordon, Will Barton. They thought they were going to get Murray back earlier in the year. They didn't, and they've maintained. There were some struggles there, right? That's why Embiid really caught some attention to win the award. Then they get Harden, and what's going to happen when you get a James Harden? You're going to take a dip. Your numbers are going to take a dip, and there might be a figuring out process there to win games. We just saw it the other night. I mean, you lost a game against the Bucks. You lost to the Pistons, even though you got yours. Jokic has been steady Eddie here the last couple weeks for sure. And he's playing with a lesser cast, and they're above the playoff line in what is not as competitive Western Conference as it is the East, but very much in the conversation. We've still got about 20 minutes to go here on tonight's show. And by the way, Giannis out tonight, no Middleton, Paul George, Reggie Jackson, they're all resting tonight as well. So that 8:00 game tonight no longer looks as fun. Unless you want to, do you want to tell people why they should play Bobby Portis? Because Bobby Portis is your most expensive player on DraftKings tonight at $6,300.
Yeah, you should play Bobby Portis because he averages 1.1 DraftKings points per minute with all those guys off the floor this season. But I think that there are other guys that stand out more to me. I mean, Jordan Noira at the absolute minimum at $3K. He has not really been in the rotation of late, but when he gets the opportunity to play, he can really get the job done. I took a look. He's played 19 games in his career where he has played at least 25 minutes, and he averages over 30 DraftKings points in those contests. So last time he saw big minutes was against the Thunder. He finished with about 24 DraftKings points. You will gladly take that at $3K. So he's my my preferred option for the Bucks here.
Okay, very good. So once again, want to mention Matt LaMarca has an article written up on DraftKings Playbook, dknation.draftkings.com, breaking down tonight's NBA slate from a betting and daily fantasy perspective. Moving right along, may I add that this next player we'll discuss, a player prop over on DraftKings, and we see some of your questions on YouTube. We will get to them in just a moment. I feel like every time more so during the heat of the pandemic, Saddiq Bey was one of the dudes you would write up on a lot. And that's because the Pistons were just like, all right, let's see how this guy can play. Let's see. And they're still kind of doing that now. But Saddiq Bey, he burned me last night, by the way. I suggested Saddiq Bey to finish under 2.5 threes. He was at 2 for most of the fourth quarter. And then what does Saddiq Bey do? He drains 2 in crunch time to get to 4 threes on the night. But you like under 19.5 points tonight for Saddiq Bey. It's at minus 105.
Yeah, and the line has actually even creeped up to 20 and a half at this point.
Okay.
So there's even a little bit more value there. Now, the reason for the line move is that the Pistons ruled out Kelly Olynyk. So that leaves them without one sort of, high usage front court player. Marvin Bagley is also out. So they have some minutes available. But for me, this line is it's become inflated by that, 50-point performance that he had when Cade Cunningham was out of the lineup.
And Cade's
He went for 51 in that game. Since then, he has been under 20 and a half in 6 of his past 7 games.
And he scored 20 last night, right?
20 last night. Yep. So I think this number is a smidge high. It is a good matchup against the Thunder. The Thunder have been dreadful. The Thunder are going to be insanely shorthanded tonight, just 8 players available. But I still think this number is just too high for me.
Okay. To pivot off that, do you like the Pistons minus 4 Or is that like not touching it? I like you more when you're getting points, Detroit.
Yeah,
So,
I think I'm going to avoid that number. I think it's a completely different dynamic being a home underdog and being a road favorite. And as much as this Thunder team, you look at some of these names and you're like, okay, Lindy Waters is going to play 30 minutes tonight. I do like some of these guys that the Thunder have, particularly Teo Maladon and Alexei Pokashevsky. They have been playing really good basketball of late. Isaiah Roby, you can throw him in that conversation too. So I think this Thunder team might be a little friskier than some are giving it credit for tonight.
yeah, they were very frisky with Shane SGA earlier in the year. I find it easier to just say SGA. But yeah, the Pistons, great story against the number this year, but I hear you. I hear you on that. What else do we have here? So yeah, the Pistons are road favorites tonight against the Oklahoma City Thunder. How about, so there are some other spots here I wanted to ask you about on tonight's slate. So there's a question. So let's get to the question from Robbie Noble. And you mentioned a little bit of Luka off the top, but is there a situation based on injury news and projecting chalk and any optimizers that you use? Is there a place where you can tell yourself, okay, I can fade Luka Doncic tonight?
I think that I don't want to say he's a fade, right? I like Luka quite a bit.
Yeah.
I think he would just be lower on my priority list when you're looking at the stud targets compared to Nikola Jokic, I think is the clear top guy. But I really like LeBron if he's in the lineup. If LeBron plays, I think 10-9 is too cheap for him. So if your question is, do I fade Luka and go with some of the other studs? I think that's totally viable. But I think that for the most part, you want to have basically two guys who are at least 10K in almost all of your lineups tonight. There are just so many guys priced near the minimum or below 4K that have the potential to be huge sources of value.
Let's not forget LeBron just the other night against this Pelicans team, 39 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists. He's had at least 61 and a quarter fantasy points in 4 straight. He's trying to go for the scoring title, but this is also a game that does matter for standings. And I think, you know what, as much as the season has been a disaster for the Lakers, it would mean something to me. I'm closing my eyes and envisioning this 10 days from now, regular season's over. Whether we like it or not, because it's easy for us to say, yeah, Lakers, I'm all set. Well, if the Lakers are in the play-in and they've got AD and they've got LeBron, okay, I'm going to put it on. I'm going to watch. I want to see what happens. LeBron's had a great year. I'll get sucked in. And I think he'll buy into it too. And this is one of those games tonight that will further ensure we are going to see LeBron James for more games outside of the remaining regular season games.
I'm not burying the Lakers until they're done. You know,
well, they're done. I mean, come on. But you think they're going to win 2 games in the play-in?
You don't think they could beat the Pelicans and the who would even be the 8 seed right now?
The Clippers. They don't know if they're going to beat the Clippers. I don't think so.
They can beat the Clippers if they have to.
So as of now, as of right now, the Clippers and the Wolves would be the 7, Clippers would be the 8. Who do you if let's just play it out? Wolves, Clippers tonight. Who do you like? Assuming no Kawhi, but it's Paul George.
No Kawhi, but I get Paul George. I'm going to give it to the Clippers because I really think Ty Lue is an excellent coach. I love what he has done all season. You cannot kill them, right? They have so many 20, 25-point comebacks, including against the Jazz in Paul George's first game back. They just have 0 quit. So
yeah,
I'm going
to
give
last
them
night?
a slight edge.
What'd they do last night?
Last night they lost.
Last night they collapsed last night.
Well, that's different.
Let's put that to the side. No, I hear you. That's the Clippers for you, right? Like the last 2 games is exactly what their season's been. Whether Paul George is in the lineup or not, like they had some come from behind wins with George in the lineup earlier in the year than when he got hurt. I don't know. What's the latest on Kawhi Leonard? Is there, I know there's a chance, but is it promising that he might play?
I would say that at this point, we're probably down to about 10% chance that he suits up. The last report that I saw was in early March, and it was him doing a vigorous on-court workout that reportedly impressed the reporters that were on hand.
Yeah.
But since then, just absolute crickets. I think at this point they're prepared. They're ready to play without him, and if he does show up, then it would just be a nice little surprise.
Yeah, I think a real tell would be play him. Look, I'm just putting on my theoretical hat here. I'm not a doctor, but if they were gonna play him in a playoff series or a play-in tournament game, and they're gonna want the full Kawhi, well, here's your sample, like what they're doing with Paul George. Okay, hey Paul, we're gonna play for 2, sit you for a game. Because I was talking about this a little bit with the Action Network folks earlier this week, talking about the prospects of the Clippers. Because you watch the Clippers play and they beat the Jazz the way they did, and they come from behind, and you're like, ooh, is it worth looking into Clippers futures? I'm like, well, hold on a second. Like they're gonna manage the sorry, someone's trying to call me. They're gonna manage they're gonna manage Paul George here down the stretch, right? And they're doing that tonight. So in that case, that would mean, so back to what we were talking about, the theoretical, that would mean, assuming the Lakers are in and they win against the Pelicans or the Spurs, most likely the Pelicans, you'd get them against the Minnesota Timberwolves, and they match up well. They match up well with them.
Yeah, I would expect the Lakers to be underdogs in whoever they face up with, if they even make it that far, as you alluded to. But again, this is LeBron James. He is, for my money, the greatest basketball player that ever lived. I haven't seen any decline from him. And so, yeah, I'm not burying him. I just refuse to do it.
Yeah. I mean, who would they get if they were to get in? They would play. Yeah, they'd probably play Phoenix, right? Like that would be the
best they could do is get the 8 seed, and that would set up a matchup versus Phoenix.
Which, everyone's going to look back last year, or was it?
It was the same exact thing. They advanced out of the play-in tournament. They played the Suns,
right?
And the Suns beat them,
right? And they were up 2-1. Lakers were up 2-1.
I can't remember exactly.
I'm pretty sure the Lakers were up 2-1 in that series. They were up 2-1, and then Davis got hurt.
Right, and then Davis got hurt.
So I'm going to double check that. But yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. I think Phoenix has turned. Phoenix has turned a corner. I would like to think since that. I think that arguably might have been their toughest series last year.
Until they got to the Bucks.
Until the finals. Yes, until the finals. Yes.
Last year was, in my opinion, the learning experience for the Suns, right? The old NBA adage is that you need to lose before you can win. Yeah. We saw that for years with the Bucks, coming up short in the playoffs. And then last year, granted, in a year where there were a lot of things that broke right for them, they got over the hump. Mm-hmm. I think that Phoenix, this could be the year that they get over the hump.
Yes, Lakers were up 2-1 last year. They lost game 1 on the road, and then they won in Phoenix by 7, went back to LA and won by 14. And then they lost the next 3. And that's right, Davis was hurt. So let's see. Any other questions we can file through here, or just wrap it up?
Here from producer Daniel.
Yeah, sure.
What's the Celtic ceiling if Rob Williams comes back in the second round? So first they would have to get out of the first round,
which is no certain thing.
No certainty.
After seeing that game against Miami Wednesday, I've already got my doubts. I do.
Right. And if they're in the 3 seed currently, they're a half game up on the 76ers, who have a drastically easier schedule than the Celtics. So
they sure do.
They could very well flip spots there. And then that would set up a first round matchup versus either the Bulls or the Raptors. Either way, 3 or 4, you're going to play the Bulls or the Raptors one way or the other. Without Robert Williams, the Celtics are probably favored to win that series with home court, but I think it would be a very good, entertaining series. They ultimately need Williams if they are going to do any damage. And if he returns and they can survive the first round, I don't see why they can't win the Eastern Conference. I thought that was their upside before he got hurt. So I don't see why they couldn't get back to that ceiling. They're the best defensive team in the league. Williams is a big part of that. He protects the rim as well as, just about anybody in the league. If you look at some of his, advanced metrics defensively, he grades out very similarly to Rudy Gobert as a rim protector. So I really like this Celtics team. It's just unfortunate injuries have come to bite them. So I'm not buying them now at their current price, but I was buying them plenty when they were closer to like 20-1 to win the finals. So I already have some exposure there. I don't think this is necessarily the right time to get in on Boston.
To get in on like a future for them.
Correct.
Yeah, I think the time has passed to get a better number. And with Williams out, I think books are, DraftKings has got them at what, plus 950 right now to win the title. What about the East? Right.
The East, they're going to be 425. Like, I know we just saw Philly lose a couple of close games, embarrassing games. I would rather have a Philly ticket at this point than a Boston ticket.
Some news coming in from our friends at DK Nation. The Thunder have ruled out. How do you pronounce his last name? The forward.
Pokusevski.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Now the Pistons are licking their chops. They're ready to get in there.
Well, the line did move up to 4.5.
Okay.
Is this dude worth a half point? I doubt it, right? Like,
I mean, on this roster, he might.
Oh, it's up to 5. It's up to 5. Pistons -5.
He is one of the few guys that you look at this Thunder roster and say, okay, that guy's a future NBA player.
When's the last time the Pistons were a 5-point favorite?
Yeah, especially a road favorite. I have no idea.
Yeah, road favorite for sure, but that's a big number. I mean, that's more than a possession.
That is sort of like, if we look at the race for the number 1 seed as, like that's the marquee race. The race for the bottom 3 records in basketball, equally fascinating to nerds like myself. So right now, Orlando and Houston are tied for the worst record at 20-57. Detroit is 1 game back at 21-56. And then OKC is at 22-54. So if Detroit wins this game, if they beat Oklahoma City, the gap between those two teams is just half a game. And the difference between a top 3 pick and a number 4 pick, it's not massive with the way the NBA has retooled the lottery odds, but your number 1 overall pick percentage drops from 14 to 12.5, and your odds at a top 4 pick drop from 52 to 48. And if you're bad, you want as many ping pong balls as possible. Those numbers may not sound big, but why not get as many ping pong balls as you possibly can?
Yeah. I mean, look,
so,
I give the Pistons credit the way they've played since the break. I mean,
absolutely.
I thought, and look, they're doing it they're doing it if you were a fan of the Pistons, they're doing it in the best way possible. They're losing, but they're like making it fun. And every once in a while they might win a game. Like they'll beat a Sixers or they beat the Bucks this year, a loaded Bucks team. And the only reason why I know that is because Julian Edlow, I think, took them first half that night and they lost. So I got a laugh out of it. Anyway, let's see. I think, Daniel, I don't know with the Celtics. We'll see. I have one last thought, and then I think we can wrap it up here. I think what I've determined is, first of all, I think the Bucks are the team to beat in the Eastern Conference. That's a big win last night. I mean, that to me showed me something. Just the way Giannis has dialed in here. Like you said, they've low-key coasted this year, not getting enough talk. Giannis is finally back in legitimate discussion as best player in the world. I think we got really sidetracked this year with what happened. Golden State having a fantastic November and December. Then the COVID shutdown kind of just plus everyone's not paying attention as much in the NBA at that point. The Bucks are clicking at the very best time, I think, right now. The Celtics were kind of a story too. Sixers go get Harden. Miami has their flare up. The Bulls were the team of the talk of the town. I think didn't you take a future on the Bulls early in the season?
I did 40-1 to win the title.
Okay, I mean, you still should feel okay about that. Like, no, maybe not.
Yeah, I did for a while, but you can grab them at 70-1 right now. So clearly not a great investment, but we're talking just peanuts here. So
right. Well, and their draw is Philly first round, which as of now,
I think the Lonzo Ball injury really hurt them.
Yes, true. So I think what I think what's going to come down to in the East is, and Miami proved this the other night. So everyone's like, oh no, the flare up, Jimmy Butler, he can't work on another team. Well, look what they just proved, right? Backs against the walls. They're an underdog. They're a 5-point dog at Boston, and they push Boston around. Now that was Boston's first game without Williams, but
that was a bad line, by the way.
Yeah, I would agree with you. It should have been.
I don't think. Again, Boston's great. I love Jason Tatum.
Yeah.
Their ceiling without Robert Williams needs to be adjusted dramatically.
Sure. I just think like the Celtics in a 7-game series should still handle their first round opponent, I think. But I think what we're talking about right now, you and me, is that's a credit to the conference being better. If this was
going to be a ball. I mean,
yeah,
this is another bet that I've been looking at. Cleveland Cavaliers to miss the playoffs. They're down to plus 135 now. It was in the plus 150 range a few days ago, but Cleveland is really kind of trending towards being in the number 7 spot.
Yeah.
And that likely means that a first round matchup versus, a play-in matchup versus Brooklyn, if Brooklyn can hold on to the 8 seed, and they have the easiest schedule remaining of the bubble teams in the East. So if Brooklyn holds on to the 8 seed, they have a first round matchup there. And then if they lose, they have to face the winner of Hornets, Hawks. And the Hawks have been red hot recently. We know Trae Young is a gamer. They have some experience from their run last year.
Yep.
So it would not shock me if the Cavaliers, despite, having a great first half of the year, being the toast of the town, all the awards for everybody, Evan Mobley, Rookie of the Year, JB Bickerstaff, Coach of the Year, they might not be in the house when all is said and done.
Yeah, and Mobley's out, I think, for 1 more game or 2 more games. He's out. Jared Allen's been banged up, so they're not clicking at the right time, that's for sure. But yeah, the East is going to be good. I think the more physical, tougher teams, and that's my concern about the Celtics. Like, I think Smart's pretty tough most nights, but
Marcus,
how tough are they? Like, Miami's tough. Like, you say what you want about Jimmy Butler being a pain in the neck to work with, but like they've got some dudes like Adebayo, tough, Giannis, Bobby Portis. Like I wouldn't want to play against Bobby Portis. The Sixers, I think there's something there, but really it's those 2 teams, and they're right now Miami and Milwaukee are the top 2 teams in the conference. So something's got to give there. But yeah, I just think the Celtics, that was not a great answer after losing Williams. I know they played the 1 game against Toronto, but no one was playing. Was not a great answer. And they're playing the Pacers tonight. We're going to learn nothing from that game. But yeah, and the Bulls, the Bulls, nice comeback last night. I think DeRozan's tough. Like, I think DeRozan in the first round will be a tough out. Like that, I think the Bulls are going to give teams a hard time in that first round. But, and like, I'll say this too, like last thing I'll say, Celtics right now would play the Raptors first round. I don't know if that's going to be a 5-game series. No way with Van Vliet and Siakam. Now I know Nick Nurse plays him a ton of minutes, but
no.
I could see that going 6-7 games. Easy.
Sure.
Easy. Okay. We have to go. LaMarca, great show. That was fun.
Always a pleasure, my friend. And as usual, enjoying all your work with the Lax and the G League, and excited for Glash WNBA season part 2. Let's do it, baby.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, hey, I'll come on here on Fridays if I'm here Fridays and talk a little WNBA. I am so down.
The dub,
Ken. Yeah. Connecticut Sun opened the season May 7th against the New York Liberty. I was actually just called them the New York lacrosse team that I'm going to do tomorrow in New York, but the New York Liberty, who did not get Breanna Stewart. So sorry about that, LaMarca. I know that's close to your heart.
I'm used to big time free agents spurning New York teams.
Such a bummer. We ran out of time. We couldn't talk about Jacob deGrom and already injured. So down go the Mets. It's okay. Chris Sale's hurt too, so we can relate to you on that one.
We'll talk about that next week with Bukes. Bukes makes his return.
Good tease. Yes, Steve Buchanan back on the show to talk baseball because he's in hibernation in the winter. He can't be bothered. He's recovering from football, and now he's going to come out of his cocoon and have angry takes. And, now the contest is up on DraftKings. The baseball opening day slate is up on DraftKings. So you've got that to look forward to. I think Kaufman's back next week. We're both back next week in some capacity. Thanks to Daniel and Eamon. For Matt LaMarca, Brendan Glasheen. You'll have a safe weekend. Enjoy all the sporty stuff going on, and we'll talk to you next Monday. Sweats at 11. This show is right around 5 o'clock, and we'll talk to you then here on the DraftKings YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter streams. We'll see you then.